Jayama, in the Shloka 3, we had understood that it is indeed rare to have three special conditions that describe our life. The first one is Manushyatvam, that is, it is indeed rare to get a human birth. And then Mumukshatvam, there are many human beings, but they are all running about chasing what? They are suffering, they are self-sabotaging, they are caught up in games, caught up in wars, and if they are winning them at a small or macro level, they are lost in arrogance and celebration. And if they have lost those wars, then they are weeping and lamenting and planning for the next round. So mumukshatvam is a unique type of quality of the human consciousness which makes the human being become fully cognizant of their human birth and the unique gift that we human beings have of questioning, who am I, why am I here, and what is my reality? And then changing the course of their life from a more outward and default direction to a more inward and Godward direction. That is called mumukshatvam. Finally, the third beauty that can be gifted is Mahapurusha Samshraya. We can have woken up to the special gift of the human body and mind. We could have now this deep, chronic, and constant desire to know our deeper self. But wherever we go, we are sold something which is a quick relief. We are given solutions which take us so far and leave us. We may find teachers who don't themselves have the answers. So, a Mahapurusha is a great soul. This great soul comes only occasionally. And this great soul, and even a short encounter with this great soul, turns our life around forever and definitely gives our soul its direction, not all over the world to get lost, but inwards to be found. So, how rare it is to have a human birth, says Shankara, to have the right question marks, says Shankara, and then to have the source for the correct answers, says Shankara. These three things, says the great sage Shankara, come only from the ultimate grace of God. So this is an anugraha. We are definitely chosen beings. So continuing in Shloka 4, Shankara says about those people who may have these qualities, then does everyone go forward in the search of the self and the truth that the God and the self are one? Does everybody just start on this journey? So Shankara talks about this in the next Shlokas 4, 5 and 6, and he says in Shloka 4, Labadva kathachin narjan madurlabam tatra pipumstvam shruti paradarshanam yastvatma mukto nayatet muddihi sahyatmaha svam vinihantya sadgrahat. So Shankara says, is there a human being or a man or a woman or a person who, having obtained this rare human birth, because we can be born in so many wombs, and also has a temperament which is rational, pumstvam, a masculine temperament doesn't mean a masculine gender, but it means a temperament which can look at life as a science and not merely as an emotional reaction. When we look at something, the subjective analysis of it can be anything, but an objective science can help us see something for what it is. And so, in simple terms, because these shlokas were used to awaken all souls, whether they were intellectually steeped in language and grammar or not, such a temperament, a scientific minded temperament, an objective temperament, a temperament that is not held back by excessive idealism, sentimentalism, romanticism, and self-obsession, is known as a masculine temperament. So Shankara says you have a human birth and you have a rather objective intellectual makeup, and you have, thanks to the teacher, more and more knowledge of the scriptures where the truth is contained. And yet, will such a person be foolish enough not to strive for moksha? Not to try to find out what is this self that the scriptures are talking about, that the teacher is talking about, that my own intellect, when it calms down from its reactions, reveals to me an inner power? Will they not try to find it out? And if such is the case, then verily this person is totally destroying their chance. And when this chance in this unique human birth with a teacher to get this knowledge will come again, one doesn't know, and it is as good as committing a spiritual suicide. It has been a tradition for thousands of years in India where worthy students live for extended periods of time with worthy teachers. But the tapasya, or the perseverance to stay with the teacher and day to day gain the truth and use it, to hear it, to read it, then to contemplate it, and then to find it reflected within the self. So, mananam, shravanam, nididhyasanam, this responsibility lies with each one of us. And if we do not take that responsibility and walk away thinking we'll do it later, there is a potential that due to good karma, that soul got an opportunity, but then human beings have choices and they exercise it and they walk away from that opportunity. And the opportunity of knowledge should be seized, especially if it is the opportunity of self-knowledge, because then the self can become the illumining lamp in no matter what darkness is coming up in the future, whether teacher is there or not. And so this igniting and awakening happens due to the rare combination of humanhood, the right desires and the right answers through a right teacher, and not utilizing them is akin to spiritual suicide, says Shankara. And then the next two shlokas, 5 and 6, qualify these statements by him saying, Ita ko nwasti mudatma vastu swathe pramadyati durlabham manusham deham prapya tatrapi paurusham. is there a greater mood? Mood buddhi means the buddhi or the intellect or the thinking process or the mental apparatus of the human being that is not taking them towards relief, but it is constantly grinding them deeper and deeper into concentric circles of samsara or worldly existence of suffering and temporal happiness, time bound happiness. Such a person who we say, look, here is healthy food, here is disturbing food, they will choose disturbing food. Here is a healthy relationship, maybe a little boring. Here is some thrilling relationship, but it is dangerous. The mood atma will choose the dangerous relationship. So we say that the problem is with the mental apparatus. It has such deep samskars or conditioning that it just leave it alone, it will self-destroy. Give it time, it will self-destroy. And gender for itself suffering and gender for the world inauspiciousness. Such is a person called mood atma. They have atma, they have soul, they are also potential, greatness within them. But because of this ignorance or mood, they are called mood atma. So Shankara says, is there a greater mood atma than one who has got all these good chances and yet due to their own efforts, due to their own willpower is lacking, they fall short from the effort to realize the good benefit. Now there are some people who do not move forward in the spiritual path because of being mood atma. They will come to a satsang and instead of focusing on the content of the satsang, they might start a love affair with the person sitting next to them and not come to the satsang because it hurts for them to come there, for example. They might come to the satsang, but on the way there is a shop full of sweets and and savories, and every time they come and go back from the satsang, they compulsively spend money and fill their belly. So this person is modatma. One cannot help this person, and most teachers take pity on such people but do not take them up as a project because it may take time, because the ignorance is so heavy that changes are hard to ignite in them. However, then some people think they go the opposite way. They try to work so hard to be spiritual. So Shankara says it is a death blow on people who are trying to put up a very big output of energy towards being spiritual. And so Shankara says, Vadantu shastrani yajantu devan kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha atmaikya bodhena vinapi mukti na siddhyati brahma shatantare api. So there is a knowledge that the scriptures called Grantha, Shastra are very important to us in our Vedic tradition, and each word, each line, each shloka, mantra, sutra is loaded with knowledge, and it can take us to our destination. So what some people do is they memorize them. They become erudite scholars. They enter debating halls and they win. But they are like parrots. They may know the entire Upanishad gamut of mantras. They might know the Bhagavad Gita. But if somebody touches their book, they say, "Oh, don't you dare touch my book. It is mine." Oh, one knows how much they have internalized and how much is merely an ornament, this knowledge. So Shankara says Let the erudite scholars quote the scriptures. Let gods be invoked through sacrifices. So there is a class of spiritual people who perform sacrifices, fire-based sacrifices of herbs and good things that are put into the fire. And some beautiful evocative hymns are sung. Now the Vedas are split into two sections. One is called Karma Kand, one is called Gnana Kand. Karma Kand teaches us many such beautiful rituals, including fire ceremonies, to please the natural forces, become one with them, and sing praises to the higher levels of beings in higher spheres of consciousness. And the Gnan Kand goes beyond all of this, transcends these rituals to realize that the universe that we are pleasing or seeking to be in harmony with is not separate from my own existence, because I am that. So, Shankara, being a teacher of Vedanta, is pointing out to the limitation of karma kanda or rituals, and actually has explained in many places that rituals are only a preparation of the mind so that it can deal with the fullness and completeness of its true self. Somebody who is eating a jerky and drinking soda pop and burping last night's meal, and if we are told to that person that, do you know you are Brahman? Do you know you are the universal spirit? Do you know that you are Paramatma, Ishvara, God? That person will say, what? But if this person has a sacred lifestyle and there are sacred rituals that are embedded into the consciousness of this person, and performing these beautiful rituals in a moment of supreme bliss, when the teacher says, you are that, there is an inner knowingness. But the ritual in itself will not lead us anywhere. In fact, if only the ritual is done, then it can become a box, and we can become quite arrogant about it, of how large a ritual we have performed, how many times a year do we perform it, who comes and sits as audience in our rituals, what God showered us with what gifts. So this was a dig on the priestly class, which had reduced the Vedic transcendental thinking into a ritual, when the ritual was merely a symbol of the greatness of the human being. So Shankara says, let gods be invoked through sacrifices, sacrifices as in the fire-based sacrifices. Let elaborate rituals be performed. Let personal gods be propitiated. Man, made by God, or man, made God. This is a reflection. Each group of people in different pockets of earth, based on their history, culture, self-image, crafted a God as per their own image. So the man-made gods, which even lead us to war and violence and destruction and separation from our own self. There shall be no liberation. Liberation from this world and its confusing snares and traps and illusions. There shall be no liberation, not even in the lifetime of 100 Brahmas. Brahma is a concept of the creation, the created universe, and then it collapses. Then a universe is created, then it collapses. So even in 100 such cycles, the person will be lost, parroting great wisdom, mimicking it through rituals, trying to find it in man-made gods, and all this while being separated from the silent divine power within. So the invitation of Vivekachudamani is to discriminate between the non-self and the self. To discriminate between non-self and self, we have to discriminate between the path that we have to follow, which leads to the self. And to understand that path, first we have to understand what path doesn't lead. An illiterate who knows not Sanskrit or any Shloka may well be established in the self, whereas the erudite scholar, drunk in arrogance, parroting away the knowledge, may sleep with a restless mind because they know not who they are, and their search continues and will continue infinitely and never be resolved. And worse yet, if a human birth is not repeated, the desire to know the real answers do not surface, and in spite of both, if a great teacher does not appear, then all such effort will be a waste. So with this, we end.